under Rusty's Revenge there. I love that synthetic feel to that and the whining dissonance going on in the background and the abrasiveness. And that song definitely had that rubbery sound I was talking about that I really enjoyed from your record, is that rubberiness.
Wow.
Yeah. And I dug that one. And then Humongous Engine sounded like something that I would write, like the in your face grittiness, And there's a sound in there, plus a sound in Inquisitor too that's going along behind the harpsichords that has like this like groaning sort of like very synthetic but very like, it's hard to tell. Like it sounds like a lot of things happening at once, really close together. I'm not trying to describe it, but I love to look at the session of Inquisitor to figure out what that sound is.
You will never see that session.
No.
No, I only say that because it's on Cakewalk and it's ruined now because I've taken out all the ozone, all the isotope plugins. So I'd have to reconstitute that now. So
no worries.
Yeah, it's kind of. I don't know what you're talking about, really. I don't know what sound. Humongous Engine is the one with all the synths on it. It's all the sequences.
Yeah.
It's just sequence, built up, and then what I wanted to do at the end, I didn't actually achieve it. It was one I had to let go because I just thought I know I'd have to rejig this to do it. I wanted the kick to be like a nail in the forehead when it came in. So I was gonna put all the synths down in volume a bit and have the kick really just nail you to the floor sort of thing, but I didn't. I ended up not doing that, and I don't know. It sort of got away from me, and I thought, you know what? I quite like it the way it is, so we'll just leave it the way it is.
Well, the end of the song reminded me of like some of the best music from like video games in the 90s.
Yeah.
There was which I love, right? I grew up playing video games in the 90s, so that music's near and dear to me. It took me years to get over the I don't know what it is, but like my view of that, because I considered it crappy, right? Because when you think about Nintendo sounds with 8-bit processors, like it's not desirable at that time. Like you wouldn't like present that as like a music option, but when you're playing Nintendo, it is the option. So you're like, let's do it. And it's like, and you forget about the composition skill that goes into that stuff because you allow the sounds to cheapen it, But as time's gone by, 30 years have been removed from that. Now it's nostalgic and it's become sought after, and people intentionally make music that sounds like that because of their experience as children and playing those games and whatnot. And it made me realize that like my love for that music when I was a kid was real. Like it wasn't like I was just loving it because of where it was. It's truly brilliant music. Like when you listen to the soundtracks on Mario Brothers and Zelda and Final Fantasy, like there's some serious composition going on there. And it sounds sometimes like it's just thrown away, like it just made up. But then you realize, no, that's just my lack of respect for it. Which is, I've always hated that. I think I've brought that up before, like I've always hated when I show someone a song I'm proud of and they say something like, oh, your music writes itself, or it sounds like you just made it up. And I'm like, where the fuck do you think this is coming from? Like, it didn't write itself. I wrote it. And of course it sounds made up because I fucking made it up.
Yeah, it's...
But I realize what they're trying to say when they say that. It sounds like there was no thought put into it. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it just sort of like you're just reacting to yourself without any sort of, which is, I mean, what is music? If the music isn't reacting to itself, what is it reacting to? I don't know. But, and then it was... so it was the Northern Hat song, I think, is where you had like that real smoothy sax that's the sax sound I don't like as much, but I still dug it,
Yeah.
Now, so what is a hat song anyway? Is that something like a Scottish tradition, or is that?
No, it's not. No, it's. Do you remember we were talking about Hatfield and the North?
Okay, I hear it now. That makes so much more sense.
It came at just the right time. It's like one of these things, the universe just drops it in front of you. This is what you need.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about it, about how that the Hatfield and the North had just blown my mind because I didn't realise they existed. I thought they were something completely different and had never looked at their music, which is weird because I know a lot of stuff about Henry Cow and Recommended Records and the Canterbury scene and all that, and Hatfield and the North had just escaped me. And I sort of went mad when I heard them, and I thought, well, I've got saxophone plugins and I'm putting saxophone on here. And it was the long track at the end. I was struggling. Well, I wasn't struggling, but I was working towards the denouement at the end of that. And I thought, what does this need? And then I heard the Hatfield and the North albums, and that's what it needs. It needs a bit of Lol Coxhill in there. And so that's got saxophones on it, so it was a tribute to them and a memory for me to remember, that this was the moment that I discovered Hatfield and the North. So it's a play in their name is all it is, really.
I don't know why I didn't pick up on that. I should have, especially considering I've been listening to them more recently too, since you brought them back to my attention.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's just one of those things that, when you sent me that video, first thing I went to is my download folders where I have my Canterbury folder, and just opened it up and went through a whole bunch of it, and because that was Canterbury music is something that I've had to revisit multiple times before it grabbed me, right? And it was like I think Caravan and whatnot was a band I tried to listen to first, and it all just sounded sort of like limp-wristed jazz fusion to me. Mm-hmm. It didn't have the bite to me the bite's there. I just wasn't hearing it, and it took a psychedelic mushroom trip and Soft Machine Part 2, the second Soft Machine.
Right. Yes.
There's one track at the end of there where it sounds like they invented heavy metal. Soft Machine, those guys push themselves into directions that are still, I think, being explored by people, and so when I the third or fourth time I'd be revisiting the Canterbury sound, and when it finally clicked for me, and all of a sudden Henry Cow sounded like music, because Henry Cow sounded terrible to me for years. I thought, who could listen to this shit? I thought Henry Cow was the kind of music that people who don't like jazz music, who think jazz is noise. That's how I felt about Henry Cow. I was like, I don't get this. Those guys they're just making shit up on the spot. There's no intention on anything. Then when it clicked for me, and then it went from being like nonsensical, crazy people who sound like they should be homeless, to being like these musical geniuses. And it happens so quickly. It goes from being like, this is nonsense to being genius, and I think by the time I discovered Hatfield, I had already fallen in love with it. So there was no learning curve for me. So I listened to Hatfield once through and went oh, I have them now, leave them in that folder, and never really went back. So I was familiar with them, but you've actually helped ignite that in me a bit too. And I've been listening to more Canterbury music recently and loving that looseness of that crazy stuff. And of course, I always go back to Soft Machine, because I don't know if Soft Machine is the best in the group there or whatnot. And, but there's like I said, the first time I listened to Soft Machine, I found myself laughing hysterically when it first hit me, when it first made sense, because to me it sounded like they would sit there and go what's the most absurd thing we can do for 4 bars? And then they do that, and they're like, okay, let's do that 4 more times to make sure it's serious. We have to prove that it was intentional. Yeah. And then we'll do something crazy again. And it's they just do that for an hour for a whole album. It's just do crazy shit every 10 seconds, and I love that about them. And and if you listen to them talk, if it was up to them, their albums would be one song. There'd be no track breaks. And apparently it was Frank Zappa that talked them out of it. Frank was like, if you want to make money, you want lots of tracks. They pay you by the track, not by the amount of music.
Of course, yeah.
So he's like, let's take your big long song and say it's 12 tracks, and then you'll get paid more. Yeah. So and I remember reading that in a liner note. I don't know if it was Robert Wyatt or David Allen that had that conversation with him, or maybe it was somebody else in the band. I'm not sure, but those are the two names.
Frank was very hot on those things, wasn't he? And he did give a lot of advice to people if they had conversations with him. He was quite open about that kind of stuff. He wasn't keeping secrets,
Exactly, and I was very pleased to find out when I was doing my John McLaughlin Frank research. I wanted to find out what Frank thought about Soft Machine, because this sounds like something Frank would like. It's crazy enough for Frank to dig it, And Frank's response when he was asked, "What do you think of Soft Machine?" And he said, "Anybody can open for the Mothers, but Soft Machine." And it was to be taken as he's saying that they're just too good. I could not follow that band. That band does everything I can do, but better.
Right.
Which made me look at them more seriously and try and give that credit, right? Because when Frank says it's good, is it, or is it just so fucked up and weird? Because Frank was a good bridge between the absurd and the serious.